Hello everyone and welcome back to another Star Wars Unlimited deck build where today we are covering Grand Moff Tarkin. I'm doing him running with the yellow. So this deck I've been running on and off for a little while now. It's a very competitive deck for such a cheap budget and I don't really see it being run that much. So that's an added bonus. First of all, Grand Moff Tarkin. What does he do? He's got an action which is pay 1 resource, exhaust him, give an experience token to an Imperial unit. Do not underestimate that ability. You can turn your little units into big problems quicker than your opposition will expect. You've also got a certain card in your deck, Lurking TIE Phantom, that once you start boosting with these experience tokens, you will hit damage after damage and your opposition won't have an answer to it. Once he's deployed, on attack you can give an experience token to another Imperial unit. So just experience token after experience token after experience token. What you can do, which is nice, is on your 5 resource turn, you pay 1, give an experience token to a unit. You can deploy him, attack, and give another experience token to a unit. So you can do 2 in 1 turn, which is quite nice. We're running in with yellow because you guys all know Lurking TIE Phantom is the absolute boy in this deck, so we need to run this yellow. So before we jump into the units in this deck, what does this deck actually try to do? This deck tries to be aggressive by building up smaller troops, by giving them experience tokens so we can do a lot of damage quite fast. And we like to try and do it in space within we can. And one key card within the deck that we're going to later is our Lurking TIE Phantom. As soon as you get 1 experience token on this card, it becomes an issue. Such an issue for your opposition. As soon as you get 2, maybe 3, they can't do anything about it. So yeah, that's what this deck tries to do. Be aggressive, quite fast, attacking space. The only thing I will say with running Tarkin, and a bit of advice on how to use him, so even though you can give an experience token to another unit, and you always want to give it, ideally, to your Lurking TIE Phantom, try and hit different units and don't just put them all on one unit. Because if your opponent uses Waylay and returns that card to your hand, you lose all those experience tokens and all your boosting up's kind of over. So try and spread it out as much as you can. Normally it kind of plays out of how you think the enemy deck's going to play. If you're playing like a blue-red hero, you know they can't activate Waylay or anything like that, so feel free to bump your TIE Phantom up as much as you want. So that is our leader and base gone over. With that done, we're now going to jump onto the units. We're going to start things off with the ground units. So even though this deck does try to hit space more than anything, these ground units are equally as important. So we start things off with the ISB agent. We want to run 3 of these. So it's a nice 1 cost, it's a nice starter for your deck. And when played, you can reveal an event from your hand if you do 1 damage to a unit. That's nice, but to be honest, what it mainly is good for, you play it out on your turn 1, you activate Tarkin, give an experience token to it, then it becomes a 2/4. The reason it's so nice, because it's got that free health, like most things can't deal with it, as soon as you get the experience token, it becomes a 2/4. So turn 2, you can normally just trade into whatever they have. I say trade, this thing will survive. And if they don't, I've had a few games where I just keep experience token this unit over and over and over. And then you end up with a unit that's only hitting for 3 or 4 damage, but it's got like 7 or 8 health, and the opposition just can't deal with it. So yeah, ISB Agent, really nice card within this deck. For a 1 cost, run it, it's really nice. Oh, and also, it's an Imperial, so it has a lot of synergy with most cards within this deck. You'll probably see within this deck, the Imperial is going to come up a lot. Talking of the Imperial, our next ground unit is a 2 cost, Snow Trooper Lieutenant. Like, you have to run this card within this deck because of all the Imperials. Like, this is a must. So what this card does, when played, you can attack the unit. If it's an Imperial unit, give it +2 for this attack. Like, it's so good. So good. So you can hit your Lurking TIE Phantoms, your TIE Fighters, maybe your bumped up ISB agents you want to hit for extra damage. Like, it's just so good. And in worst case scenario, you haven't got anything on field, because it's an Imperial unit, you can also bump it up with Tarkin, give an experience token to it. Run it. This is normally on my deck site, you can switch things in and out. No, 3 of these have to run 3. Our next ground unit, we're going to run 2 of General Veers. So this card, I actually think is really good within this deck. I don't always play it, sometimes it gets resourced, but what this card does, other friendly Imperial units get +1/+1. Normally, on a 4 or 5 resource turn, if you play this card out while you've got a bumped up TIE Lurking Phantom, or maybe Tarkin's out, that +1/+1, it's so good. So for instance, it's your 4th resource turn, right? what you can do, you've got your Lurking TIE Phantom out, you activate Tarkin, give an experience token to it, then you play General Veers, giving it another +1/+1. Instantly becomes a 4 health, 4 defense TIE Phantom with an extra 2 attack. Like, General Veers, really nice card. It can swing games, and once it comes out, I found the opposition kind of forget about my base, and they try and hit this as fast as possible because of what it's doing for the deck. Our next free cost unit is our Phase 3 Dark Trooper. Only got one of these. I would highly suggest running free. As you know from my previous videos, I never had any of these, and I finally pulled one. But yeah, run 3 of these if you can. If not, chuck in your cell block guards like I have to make up the 3 sentinels. So the reasons we got some sentinels in here is because we're so much focusing within space, sometimes you need a little bit in ground just to help slow them up. And if they don't take them down, what Dark Trooper does is, when combat damage is dealt to this unit, give an experience token to it. So if it survives, you can end up with a 4 damage sentinel, and then if you want to be a real pain, give it another one, giving it 5 health. So as it's a space deck, we don't actually run too many ground units, so we're jumping straight to our 6 cost. We run our ATST. So this card, it's just a nice cost, 6/7, but the main reason it's in this deck is because one event you've got, which is Triple Dark Raid, which helped you play your vehicles earlier. So you'll find a lot of the higher cost units within this, ground units within this deck, are vehicles, because you try and cheat them out with Triple Dark Raid. So ATSD is a real nice one you can put in there. I like this card. To be honest, I don't really try and hit it out as much as possible, because our next card I found is a bit more useful for it. Talking of that next card, is another 6 cost vehicle, is our Pirate Battle Tank. Run 2 of them. You know I love this card. 4/6 Sentinel. Yet again with your Triple Dark Raid, you can cheat it out early. Similar to why we run the Dark Trooper and the Cell Block Guards. Sometimes you need a little bit of help in ground. So being able to cheat out early a Pirate Battle Tank, Sentinel 4/6, is lovely to help slow down in the ground. And another reason why I really like this card is because if you get it early and resource it, you can smuggle it out for only 1 more cost. So a few times I have actually smuggled it out, surprising the opposition, and it's been just enough to allow me to attack in space to win, because they had to go through this. And rounding up our ground units, we run 1 Reinforcement Walker. So similar yet again, it's a vehicle, so we can try and cheat it out with Triple Dark Raid. This card, when played on attack, look at the top card of your deck, either draw that card or discard it and heal 3 damage from your base. To be honest, I don't think I've ever actually played this card, because this deck wins so fast normally that you don't ever seem to get to it. But it's there if you need it, and you can cheat it out with Triple Dark Raid, so that's nice. That is rounding up our ground units. Some of these you can chop and change if you want. You can chop and change these. I just found them most effective, and if you want to chop and change General Veers, you can. But like I said, sometimes he can come in very tasty for your deck. Right, so that is our ground units done, and now let's move on to the main part of our deck, and that is our space units. We're going to start things off with a 1 cost, and it's going to be our TIE Fighter. You can't run an Imperial deck without the trusted TIE Fighter. Similar to ISB Agent, you can play it turn 1 with the 1's cost. Still got another resource, activate Tarkin, bump it up, becomes a 3/2. Don't underestimate this card. Believe it or not, I've got this card to like a 6/5 or like a 7/6 sometimes. Just because it sits in space and you just keep bumping it over and over and over. And they either don't get removal for it, or they don't get enough space unit strong enough to take it down. So TIE Fighter, nice little card. Like I said, you can bump it up straight away, and it can quickly become a problem that your opposition must think about. So our next card, to help us bump up our TIE Fighter and our Lurking TIE Phantom, we run 3 Outland TIE Vanguards. What this card does, when played, you can give an experience token to another unit that costs 3 or less. So you're trying to hit your Lurking TIE Phantoms, your TIE Fighters, or, which I have done a couple of times, is hit my ISB Agents, because yet again it helps it bump up and become an issue. The amount of times I've gone turn 1, ISB, activated Tarkin, made it a 2/4. Second turn played this one, made it a 3/5, then activate Tarkin again, making it a 4/6. So that is how quickly you can make your units quite strong. So that is our 2 cost space units done. We're now going to move on to our 3 costs, and we're going to start things off with Black Sun Starfighter. You want to run 2 of these. So this card's in this deck. I know it's not an Imperial, but because of that word there, Sentinel. Normally, if you can get this card out with your Lurking TIE Phantom, your opposition has to go through this before they get to the TIE Phantom. So the TIE Phantom, if those don't know, we'll get into it later, but it can't be damaged or defeated by enemy event cards or event damage cards or card effects damage, so they have to hit it through battle. But if you've got this on the field, obviously they can't touch it, they have to go through this first. So it gives you that extra turn or two to get the damage in with the lurking TIE. You don't really want to run 3 of these because it hasn't got the synergy for the Imperial, and I found 3 of them. I was like, oh, it's resource. But the 2 is nice, just like I said, give you that option. It's like the bodyguard for your lurking TIE Phantom, if you will. Our next free cost space unit is the 7th Fleet Defender. You want to run 3 of these? Very nice card, very underrated card. Set 1, you normally saw this in all the Boba decks. What this card does, you play it out, becomes shielded, 3/2. But because it's an Imperial, you can use Tarkin to keep bumping it up. And if your opposition just leaves it alone, you can end up with quite a beefy shielded unit. And yet again, it's Imperial, so your lieutenant can boost it for an up for 2 attack. Nice card. I mainly use it to like trade whatever they put in space. So for instance, I normally have my TIE Phantom. They play something in space to try and deal with it. I play this card out to try and hit into it to protect my TIE Phantoms. So you'll find a lot of the cards in this deck is revolved around our next card, our next free cost, the main card in the deck, the Lurking TIE Phantom, and my goodness, what a card. So we've got our Defenders, we've got our Sentinels, we've got all these cards to protect this one card. But trust me, this card is insane. So I recently played this deck at locals, went undefeated, this card ran riot, and what I found in the end is that they made their deck, or they sided in so many cards to deal with this, my other stuff just kind of ran off. Like my ISB agent won me lots of game 2s because they were focusing on dealing with this. So, what does it do? It's got Ray 2, so it means it attacks for 4, and you think it's only got 2 health, but this unit cannot be captured, damaged, defeated by enemy card abilities. Like, to be honest, it's really broken, that effect, especially within this deck, because, like I said, as soon as you play this card down, give an experience token, instantly becomes a 3/3, so it's attacking for 5, and it's got 3 health that they have to do combat damage with. So this card can do insane damage, like ridiculously fast. So turn 2, you play it out for 3 resources. Turn 3, it's readied up, you activate Tarkin, giving it an experience token, making it a 3/3, means it's attacking for 5 with its Ray 2. Then you would play your lieutenant with your other 2 resources. Attack with this means attacking for 7. Oh, like, it can swing for so much damage so fast, and it can win you games so quick if the opposition just can't deal with it. To help bump up our TIE Phantom and make it even stronger, even faster, is our next space unit, which is a 4 cost, our TIE Advanced. You want to run 3 of them. What this card does is when played, give 2 experience tokens to another friendly Imperial unit. You want to try and hit your TIE Phantom if you can, but to be honest, 90% of this deck is Imperial, so you can kind of boost up whatever you want. And what I really like to do with this card is activate Triple Dark Raid, playing this card for less. So you play it out, it's readied up, you give the 2 experience tokens, and at the end of the phase, you have to return it back to your hand because Triple Dark Raid. So this goes back to your hand. Then you play it out again, giving it another 2 experience tokens. You can give 4 out to a unit with this card in 1 turn. Whew, let me tell you, that has boosted my TIE Phantoms and ISB Agent, believe it or not, faster than you can even imagine. And to round up our space units, that nice big finisher is our Relentless. So this card, to be honest, I haven't really ever got to it. I've normally won by then or the game's over. But what it does, first event played by each opponent each round loses all abilities. You can kind of run whatever you want within here, but I just kind of put the Relentless in because I've never really used it, and that can come in very nicely if you've ended up boosting other units that aren't your TIE Phantoms. It's also nice having that big space presence just in case the game does go on for that long, and if you really want to do, it's Imperial, so you can give an experience token, and you can attack and boost it with Lieutenant. But yeah, it's in there mainly just for a big problem when it suddenly appears for your opponent. That rounds up our space units, and let's move on to our events and upgrades. So I'm going to start things off with Swoop Down. I run 2 of these. I don't think it needs 3 this deck. Feel free to try 3, but I personally just don't think it needs it. So, attack for space unit, it gains Saboteur, and can attack ground units first attack. If it attacks the ground unit, it gets +2, and the defender gets -2. That's nice, you can use it to just absolutely nuke the ground units of your space, but I mainly use it for the Saboteur. So if they played a Sentinel in space, I just activate this, give it to my Lurking Tie, give it Saboteur, just run straight to base. But for a 1 cost, it's quite nice to have. Like I said, 3 I found too much, 1 not enough, 2 is just that lovely sweet spot. Let me know if you ran 3 in this deck and what you think of it. It's quite good against the really aggro decks and you're struggling to deal with their high numbers. You can just blitz them from space. We're then going to move on to our 2 costs, and a card that I've seen no one use within this deck, but I think it's insanely powerful, is 2 Legal Authorities. So, what does this card do? When played, attached unit captures an enemy non-leader unit with less power than it. Why is this card so good, do you say? Because if you attach it to your Lurking Tie Phantom, they can't really get their unit back. And you think, oh, it's only got 2 damage though. No, if you keep boosting it with this and your tie advance, you can make this easily a 5/5, 6/5, meaning you can just take anything from their side of the board, normally ground, attach it to it, and you can give it +2 health. So the only way they can get their unit back is by combat damage. But if we keep boosting this unit and we keep putting our sentinels in space, they just lost that unit. They can't get it back. So I think this card is insanely strong within this deck. It's won me games just by saying, nice unit you got over there. Thank you. I have that on my Lurking Tie Phantom. I love it. Similar to the last card though, I found 3 was too much. 1 wasn't enough, 2's that sweet spot. And just giving that 2 extra health onto it, on its own, I found just very worthwhile. And be able to take their unit is, because they can't just pop it out of nowhere. You do need to be careful though of Waylay, because that card's very good against this deck. But yeah, run this card, try it out, trust me on this. Our next 2 cost is probably one of the best cards in the deck, and a card you guys have probably seen millions of times, Surprise Strike. It's so good, run free, must run free. What to do, attack the unit, it gets +3 for this attack. So if you play the Lurking Tie Phantom, even before you boost it with an experience tokens, if you play this with it, it's attacking for 7. 7 damage. And by that time you've probably done one of these. It means attacking for 8. This card is so good. Having that +3 attack makes you win games so much faster. Especially if you've got 3 of them, you'd be surprised how many times you see them within your hand. And it helps you finish games so quick. Run free, must free, do it. Our next 2 cost, the event is No Good to Me Dead. You may be thinking, why are we running this in this deck? Because it helps slow down that ground deck. So maybe you're playing against a Sabine, they bring Supreme Leader out, boom, No Good to Me Dead, see you in 2 turns time. It just helps slow down. So you're probably seeing a nice common theme. Space is like, go, 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 go. And ground is like, we're going to just stall you, have a nice little nap. We're then going to move on to our 3 costs, and we've got 1 Triple Dark Raid. This is where if I had more of them, I would run more. If you got 3, run 3. What this card does, search the top 7 cards of your deck for a vehicle and play it. Put the other cards bottom deck in random order. When you play this unit, it costs 5 less and enters the play ready. Return to owner's hand at the end of the phase. So basically, you can pay anything for free resources, 5 or less for free, which is very nice. Like I said earlier, I like doing it with my tie advance, playing it, doing 2 experience tokens, attacking, back to hand, play it again for another 2. So this is the card you mainly want to use with your ATSTs and your pirate battle tanks. Be able to just suddenly surprise your opposition with one and be like, okay, deal with this. It's come back to my hand and you know I'm going to play it next turn. So yeah, this is a very nice card. Run free if you've got free. It's insanely strong. I just really like it. To be honest, like I said, it's nice cheating out those big units, but my favourite thing to do is the tie advance, getting those 4 experience tokens out. We're then going to move on to our next 3 cost event, and that is free outmaneuvers. I love this card. I love it so much, and it annoys your opposition every time you play it. So choose an arena, ground or space, exhaust each unit in that arena. That's another reason why we can go so aggressive in space, because you can just go space, 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 space. They go ground, 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 and then you just go, okay, outmaneuver, they're all exhausted. And that's just their turn shut off. Like, they can't attack with anything while you're just absolutely pummeling away with your Lurking Tie Phantom. Love this card, run free. It can slow your opposition down to a literal snail's pace, which I love. And then we're going to move on to a final card of the deck. It's a card I've told you to run in every single green and villainy deck. It's still an insanely strong card, and that is Overwhelming Barrage. Run 3 of them. It's so good. So Give a friendly unit +2/+2 for this phase, then it deals damage equal to its power divided as you choose among an enemy number of enemy units. It's the amount of times I've done this on my Lurking TIE Phantom that's already boosted up, nuked whatever's on the side of the field, then activate Surprise Strike on top of it. Oh, just, yeah. Overwhelm Barrage, doesn't need me talking about it loads, doesn't need me to keep introducing it to you. If you're not running it in Green Villainy, what are you doing? It's insanely strong. It can see out games. It can nuke your opposition's board. Just, it's so good. The main two things I've used this card for, normally it's 9 times out of 10 it goes on my Lurking TIE Phantom, or ISB Agent, believe it or not. And what I normally do it is either destroying, just wiping out their ground units, or I use it to remove like Sentinels in space, or any pesky cards they might want to trade into my Lurking TIE. So normally I've got the initiative and they've played a space to turn 4, so it readies up. I then played Overwhelm Barrage, remove that threat, and then just attacked. So yeah, run this card, so good, especially within this deck. And I mean, it's Moff Tarkin and it's kind of his thing, so run it. So with that done, that is our main deck done. And now we're going to quickly go over the side deck. To kick things off with the side deck, we're going to use 2 Consortium Star Vipers in the deck, mainly because it's a space unit with Restore 2, and because it's a space deck, why not? This is in here for when someone does try to stall you out and the game's getting longer, that Restore 2 can just come in so clutch for you. Our next one, we run 3 Confiscates. You guys know I love this card, but in this deck, it's got a very valid reason why it's in here. So you might see that people might try and play Traitorous on your Lurking TIE Phantom. So Traitorous is an upgrade, you equip to a card and they can take control of it. Confiscate says, no thank you, I'll defeat that and I'll have my Lurking TIE back. Yeah, I found this in my sideboard very nice, and because it's a 1 cost, you can also still do this with it. Like, why wouldn't you? We're then going to move on to our 3 cost, another card to try and help slow down the opposition. 3 Waylays. Just on Waylay, this card hard counters your deck. Be very aware if you're ever playing a Cunning deck that this card can shut you down. That's why you need to spread out your experience tokens. But yeah, Waylay helps slow the opposition down. Maybe you're not seeing your no good to me dead, or maybe they're just out aggressive in you. You just be like, okay, Waylay, take that back to your hand. And then to round up our events, we've got 2 Strike Trues. I did have this in the main deck for the longest time because green doesn't have that much removal, and it's quite a nice bit of removal. So a friendly unit deals its damage equal to its power to an enemy unit. What I mainly did it, yet again, our Lurking TIE Phantom, you bump it up, something's annoying, just go, okay, 3 cost, remove it. But I think I might put 1 back in the main deck, but I just found 9 times out of 10 I was resourcing it, and with all the Waylays and the Overwhelm Barrages and stuff, I just found side deck's the perfect spot for it. Okay, so final thoughts on this deck and matchups. Final thoughts, it's a really fun, surprisingly competitive deck that can do really well at your locals. Like I said, my last locals went undefeated and it did play against the Sabine. In the bigger scenes, I'm not too sure how to do. You can still take games, definitely, especially if you get the right cards. Lurking TIE Phantom is such an issue for some decks. Like, some decks have not got an answer to it. So a couple of cards to look out for is Waylay, and I can't think of the name right now, the other one that puts a card back to your hand, because that can still hit your TIE Phantom. So if you're bumping it up and they just do that, it's game over. No Good to Me Dead is also another card that's very strong against you, because it just take your TIE Phantom out of the game. So that's another problem. Traitorous, like I said, is another card you need to look out for. And another card is Make an Opening, because it just says give a unit -2/-2 for this phase. So if you haven't given an experience token to your Lurking TIE Phantom, that event can actually defeat your TIE Phantom, so you need to be aware of that. For matchups, because it's such an aggressive deck, it's quite good against other aggressive. Against Control, it's surprisingly alright, because Control tries to hit your TIE Phantom, and obviously TIE Phantom's like immune to 90% of the Control decks, so lovely there. Against Aggression, it very much comes down to what you draw and what they draw. You can beat Sabine, I've done it, you definitely can do it, but you do need to get the right cards, and you need to make sure you play your cards in the correct order to do it. All in all, really enjoyed this deck, can win locals, can probably do well in the competitive scene, and it's cheap as well, which is an added bonus, and it's really good fun. I like Tarkin, I like just boosting my units over and over and over, and it's quite funny seeing like an ISB agent or a TIE fighter hit him for like 10 damage. And believe it or not, that does happen more than you want to believe. So yeah, This deck, let me know what you think of it in the comments, any changes you may make. Thank you for watching the video, and hopefully I shall see you in the next one.